Rollin', 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 Z8 firmware rollin', keep that firmware rollin', Nikon.
G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope you are super well. Yes, today we're here to talk about a major firmware update for the Nikon Z8 firmware 3.00. I hear that second zero is important. And yes, this update is packed with over 20 features, all of them from my perspective quite meaty, and depending on your use case, you are going to find them just ridiculously useful. All right, let's get into it, and we're going to start with some of my favorites. There's the Z8 there, and the reason that I have the ZF and the Z9 is a lot of the features that are coming have already been added to the ZF, the Z9, and also the Z6 III we are shooting on. But there's also a raft of new features that are coming first to the Z8. Now, will they come to other cameras? Well, maybe. Only time will tell. But from my perspective, Nikon is listening to its users. It's trying to understand which features are more popular or not, and then it brings them to us as quickly as they can. And that's why this update is full of lots of features from these previous updates and lots of new features specific to the Z8. Now, today is the worldwide announcement of this firmware, and it is coming soon. Not too long, I'm quite sure. And I'm going to start with some of my favorites, which includes advancements to pixel shift, advancements to N-Log, advancement to magnification, improvements to Profotto support, in-body focus limiter, and a really cool one, improvements to memo recording to stills. All right, let's start with pixel shift. Yes, the veritable Z8 does shoot pixel shift with its already whopping 45 megapixels. That takes us out to 180 megapixel files when you shoot with pixel shift. And how does it do that? Well, it moves the sensor just a little bit, just a pixel or two between each image. But not only do we get more resolution, we also get improvement for noise and improvement for color. But now this addition brings us even more. For starters, we can now change the exposure and thus creating a more high dynamic image. The maximum change is up to 3 stops. This allows for an extraordinary range of high dynamic, high megapixel, high color, and low noise images. Beyond that, we also get the ability to create a separate folder on our card with each session of shooting, and you can start the numbering at 0 each time you start shooting. And on top of that, you can apply focus shift. And pixel shift, along with all of those features, is now available with a self-timer, which means that you can tap the shutter button and the vibrations can go away before it all starts shooting. That makes perfect sense. And another part of pixel shift is that the white balance can be set to locked, so the white balance remains the same as the first image in the sequence of images. What Nikon are telling us is they are the first full-frame mirrorless camera to be able to do this without any extra accessories. This is all controlled within the camera. So pixel shift, it's an absolutely massive improvement, and I am pumped about all of that. Nikon has adjusted the characteristics of N-Log to more match Red's technical LUT. And what this has done is to bring down the highlights so it's more easy to see when you're shooting what your exposure is actually going to look like. Having shot with N-Log, this is a fantastic improvement. Another one that I find really cool is on some of your Nikon cameras, you can record up to a 60-second memo to your stills images. And in the past, you would just do that by using the microphone that is built into the cameras. But now Nikon is allowing you to use the external mic port. That will mean being able to use professional level microphones along with wireless microphones like we're using right now, the DJI Mic 2, and you will be able to record up to 60 seconds of higher quality sound. This to me is really great because you'll be able to get little sound bites or maybe even mini interviews from the people that you are photographing. It's just a feature that's useful for pros in the field, and you can actually see it helping photojournalists and documentarians, or even everyday photographers who just want to make a reasonably long note about what they've just done and how they've just done it. It might not be something that you can record in metadata. It might be more than that. So to have this memo built into your camera is fantastic, and to now be able to use the external mic port, absolutely cool. This release also allows for NX Field 1.6.0 to be connected to this camera, and it is now free. That is super cool. And if you like working in HEIF files, the camera can now convert in camera from RAW or JPEG to HEIF. And you can dial in your own settings for those conversions. A feature that was in the Z9 is the ability to be able to create high frequency flicker reduction presets, and thus by holding down just one button, up comes a sub-menu and you can dial into that menu, rather than having to scroll through a huge number of shutters if you're jumping between normal shutter speeds and high flicker reduction. Then it takes you into that area which allows you to change between the multiples of that shutter speed. This is cool for people working in, say, sporting arenas where you might have signs in the background that are changing their flicker ever so slightly, so as you move your camera from left to right, you can quickly change between the variables. Also, like the Z9, C15 has been added to your shutter speeds. This means you don't have to capture as many images as, say, C30 or higher. C15 is less, of course, and along with that, you can now choose the quality of those files between normal and fine. And something that's brand new to all cameras, which I'm super excited to see, when you used high-res zoom, which is awesome, what that means is if you're on a Z6 III, a Z5 II, a Z8 or a Z9, and you are using that extra resolution in a 4K video timeline to digitally zoom, which looks beautiful, it doesn't look digital at all, there was no face recognition. There was no box that would appear to just give you the sense that everything's in focus, even so it looked completely in focus. Now, for the Z8, and I suppose this will roll out to other cameras with high-res zoom, we are now seeing the recognition of focus with a focus box around the intended subject. This is really cool because prior to that it was like, yay, I'm using high-res zoom, it is in focus, I can see it's in focus, but it's not behaving like everything else does on the camera. Now we get a focus recognition box. That is cool. Another thing that will be exciting to many shooters, whether it's birding or whether you're using manual lenses, is now the ability to magnify the EVF up to 400%. This is something that can already be found in the ZF. Something that has been improved from the Z9 is the ability, if you own a Profotto A10 flash, it can now pre-illuminate the scene, allowing your Z8 to find focus, and then you can fire the flash and get your result. This is really exciting. For people that have this flash, a really useful feature, and it's not just firing out a single beam in a single area, it will illuminate the entire scene. Really useful for people that use flash in, say, event photography, weddings, or maybe you're even paparazzi. Another really cool one for people that love shooting in low light situations, which is people like me, is the ability to have what is called maximum aperture live view. And what this does is open your aperture to the maximum size so you can see and focus as best as possible, and it will shut down to whatever you've set it to be. If you're like me, you're probably shooting at 1.2 all the time, and so you won't see any change. But if you're shooting at 2.8 and you have a 1.2 lens on, it'll open up to that 1.2 while you're looking around and acquiring. It'll hit that 2.8 for the shot or for the video, and then it will go back to that 1.2. Again, just a really useful feature for getting the most out of your sensor and your lens to be able to work in low light situations. Flexible picture control. To the best of my understanding, what this means is you can now create your own picture controls in NX Studio, a new version which will be coming soon, version 1.9.0, I think. And those custom picture controls you'll be able to download via a memory card from your computer into your camera. And then, well, you've essentially got your own looks that you can craft on your computer and then utilize in your Z8. Again, this is something that I suppose we will see rolled out to other cameras because it makes perfect sense if you want to use your custom picture controls over more than just your Z8. Time will tell, but here it is. Now, the in-body focus limiter is going to be useful to so many types of photographers, so many use cases. So your lens might go from, say, 1 foot or 30 centimeters out to infinity. But what you're shooting might be between 3 meters and 5 meters, or 9 feet and 15 feet. So you can now set that, and that's what you'll have. And that is all the lens will do. This is absolutely a boon for, say, birding photographers, where you might be looking at, say, a bird inside a nest, and your depth of field is very short, and you don't want the camera to jump onto the side of the nest, which it might do, or there might be blades of grass between you and your subject. Again, you don't want them jumping onto that. This way, you can guarantee that you are just in a set plane of focus. This is super cool, and I can see so many people using it. And well, a feature like this, which is a new one, and I really would expect a feature like this to come across all of the cameras because it's useful for all sorts of situations. All right, everybody, well, there's just a few of the highlights. I've probably gone through about half of them. There's actually a whole lot more on top of that. This is just a lot of really sensible and useful upgrades and advancements and new features for all different types of photographers and videographers, and everything here is improving. What this is about is improving the usability of our cameras, giving us more features, giving us more power. In the example of pixel shift, the idea to be able to change the exposure between each image, absolutely fantastic. N-log being improved so we can actually see what we're doing even easier when it comes to the highlight areas. High-res zoom working more efficiently, fantastic. The idea of being able to have a focus limiter, I think that's something that's going to be used by so many people. This firmware has a lot of stuff in it, a lot of stuff we already had, and a lot of new features. If you own a Z8, I think you're going to be very excited. And if you don't own a Z8, well, gosh, they've just made it even better than when it was released 2 years ago. And this is all absolutely free. How cool is that? It's so exciting, the fact that we've seen the Z9, which is coming up to 4 years old in about 6 months. It has had 4 major updates since its original firmware, Firmware 1. We're up to 5.20, I think. And now the Z8, which is around 2 years old, it had its original firmware, and now we've had 2 and 3. Again, major firmware updates, year 1, year 2. This just continues to tell us that Nikon are very serious about firmware. They're very serious about giving us more, because these are real features that really add usability, functionality, and support us more in creating and achieving what we want to achieve photographically, whether still or moving. I'm really excited by this update because this really seems to value add to so many different people's use cases. I'd love to know what you think about all of this in the comments below. That's what's most important, is how these firmware updates impact you and how excited you might be. The Z8 is an amazing camera that is extraordinary value when you consider it is very, very similar to the Z9, which is the flagship. So essentially this is a flagship at a much more affordable price, and we just got a whole raft of new features. All right, everybody, love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. It's been so good to see you. And if this is your first time here, I'd love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. All right, bye for now.
Rollin', 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 Z8 firmware rollin', keep that firmware rollin', Nikon. Through rain and wind and weather, my Z8's getting better. Wishing my Zs were by my side. Through all the things we're doing, we never have to stop shooting. The buffer, it never gets too high. Write 'em in